Hello and good day, beautiful soul. Thank you so much for joining us once again. This is another episode of Permission to Follow Your Inner GPS, your guided purpose soul path. And today's guest is an amazing lady. We've just spent the last little bit chitter-chattering beforehand because, you know, when you're on social media and you've known each other for a while, you don't always connect face-to-face or voice-to-voice, so it's really kind of cool. Allow me, please, to introduce this beautiful lady, this beautiful soul. Her name is Terry Wildemann, and she is an intuitive leader, speaker, author, high-performance business acceleration coach, helping socially conscious small business owners and leaders elevate their business to the next level with speed and ease. Please help me welcome this beautiful lady. Hello, gorgeous. It's so amazing to have you here. It's such an honor. Thank you.
And it's amazing to be here, too. And I knew I was in the right spot the moment you say, hello, gorgeous, because that's what I always say.
Many years ago, someone used to try to tell me, because I say I alternate between beautiful and gorgeous, and say, well, you look like a gypsy and you're wearing too many bracelets. And I thought, and for a while, I allowed it to dissuade me from being more of me. And then a close friend said, what are you doing? So, what do you mean? You stopped being you. You stopped saying, hello, beautiful. You stopped wearing your bracelets. And I went, yeah. Said, stop it. And I went, okay. So
good for her. That's a good friend.
It is a good friend, yes. Please, beautiful lady, tell us more about you and what it is you do.
Well, as you read, I am a business accelerator, and I love helping small business owners reach the next level. And in doing that, I use my intuition. I use my skill sets. I love getting into that inner wisdom place. And the goal is to help them do the same thing for themselves. Because when they do it for themselves as leaders, they then can teach that process and work with that process with their employees. So and you don't necessarily have to use words like intuition. You don't have to use words, though intuition is pretty mainstream. But you don't have to use a lot of the woo-woo words, as you know where I'm going with that. You don't have to use a lot of the woo-woo words that sometimes people go, yee, too much. What a lot of people don't realize is that the work that you and I do, there are a lot of us who work with angels in the back end. There's a lot of us who work with their inner wisdom. And whether you're in the military, whether you're corporate, whether you're a small business owner, it doesn't matter. Intuition is part of that game. And it has to be part of that game, because when we work from here up, look at how small this is. It's tiny. Look at how much of the rest of us there is. And our intuition is from here down.
Yes.
And there's a lot more of that than there is of this.
Yeah, there's too much of this in that small space that gets going around and around. You know, I often talk to my own clients and to myself about getting to the next level. Would you share more about what that actually means?
Well, it's different for everybody, okay? Getting to the next level. So you may have somebody who's making six figures, and for them, their next level is getting to the next six figures. Or you may have somebody who's making $25,000, and for them, the next level is reaching $35,000 or $50,000. So it's different for everyone. And part of what I do is with my skill sets, I go in and I clear out self-sabotaging emotions, because I find that a lot of the reasons why we hit our levels, why we become stagnant, is because of self-sabotaging stuff that we don't even know is there. So I love, as a holistic practitioner also, I love being able to quickly get in there and clear that stuff out, so that reaching the next level actually becomes easy, because then we get into the systems of business and we look at what's working and what's not working. But I can't get into any of that until we clear out the emotional BS that is holding us back in the form of hidden emotions. And a lot of this stuff is stuff that happened at a very young age.
I totally agree with that. I call it blind spot, or BS, blind spot, because we're in it. And even though we have healed the
Mm-hmm.
It's actually deeper than that. And the more we're able to clear out this, what I call energy confusion, or sometimes energy overwhelm, the BS, then we can get to the life purpose or the business systems, because you
Exactly.
can put those into place. And I don't want to say the word but, if there's something still in the mix that's going, yeah, but up in here,
Mm-hmm.
whether they recognize it or not, it's not really going to go anywhere. It could spike a little bit, but then go backwards.
Exactly. And I'm also I'm licensed with as a coach with the Heart Math Institute way back in 2001. And as you and I talked, I'm a Reiki master, and I do EFT and, tapping and NLP and all that other good stuff. And what I know is that in doing this work with business owners, a lot of them will say to me is they came to the meeting with a knee pain, or their hip hurts, or their shoulder hurts, or their belly hurts, or something hurts. And by the time we're done, it's disappeared, because we have released the hidden emotions that are attached to the fears, or to that subconscious level that holds them back from really being grounded and centered and in integrity with who they really want to be. So that's a lot of fun when that happens. It happens. It actually happens a lot. I don't come up front and say, well, we're going to be healing this, we're going to be healing that. That's not where I go. Where I go is, let's clear out what is holding you back from being the best small business owner that you can possibly be, so that you can bring out the best of yourself and your team.
That is so important. The way you approach it is, I feel I do somewhat similar, because when we approach, well, we need to clean this out first. Well, I don't want to do that. I just want to help my business. I just want to grow my business. I just want to do this. I want to do that. And once you get it into it, then the person's going, okay. So that is so important. And I'm really glad you brought that up. Did you always know that this is what you wanted to do, beautiful?
Well, my background is quite eclectic. And how I got here, I think, was more of a vehicle of the universe just sort of took me where I need to go. From the time I was very little, I always wanted to, I guess I read too many Nancy Drew books. I wanted to go into law enforcement, and my degree is actually in criminal justice. And I was in law enforcement for about 7 years, and in different aspects of law enforcement. And before that, though, I had my first business when I was 18. I was in college. And even before that, I was selling rides in my little red wagon. So there's always been this little business money thing going on in the background. And I mean, we had parakeets, and I tried to talk my dad into, let's mate them and sell the parakeets. So there was always some kind of business thing going on in the back of my head. And through college, I was very blessed I worked in a shoe store, and I worked in a bookstore, and I was a waitress, and I was the dining room manager for a restaurant, and I worked at a sporting goods shop and a call center. And what I know is every single one of those positions has influenced me and has been written about in my books and my articles in some way, shape, or form, because they molded where I am today. And after my first daughter was born, I let go of everything, because I was in my late 20s. I owned a manufacturing company where we built electrical control panels and baggage racks for the railroad industry. And that was this thing that just landed in my lap, and it seemed like the right thing at the time to get into because of my sales and marketing, customer service background. And finally sold that part of my business, and I married the military. My husband was active duty military. Married him, and 9 months and 2 days later, my first daughter was born. And I have to share with you, I was told by 4 doctors I could never have children.
Yeah, they don't always know the
Right.
best things for us.
Right.
No.
And so she and I think she was 3 months old. She and I went to image consulting school together. And she's the youngest graduate of the image consulting school that I went to. And that actually is the beginning of what started where I am today. Image Plus Associates, I would work with professional men and women. We would work with image. We would work with body language, customer service, leadership. One thing just led to another. But the whole time, I've always had this very deep connection with angels and intuition and spirit. And God forbid we talked about it. But enough of my people around me knew it, so much so that, and I wrote about this in my latest book, The Enchanted Boardroom, I got lost when we were, we were stationed in Norfolk, and we were living in the Chesapeake area, and I needed to get somewhere. I had the 2 girls in the back seat, and I was all frustrated, and you know how we get sometimes when, and we didn't have, there were not, GPSs were not around then. And I got lost, and I was getting all discombobulated, and my little 5-year-old, 6-year-old at the time said, "Mommy, why don't you pull over and listen to your angels, because they always tell you where to go."
Out of the mouth of babes.
And I remember sitting at the stoplight crying. It was one of those super stressed out. My husband was deployed. I was just going nuts. And I listened, and I pulled over, and I got very quiet and regrouped. And sure enough, bing, there I was. And we got there.
And if you were to retrace those steps, you might not be able to do it, because how you get somewhere intuitively, it's almost like you have to leave breadcrumbs in order to go that exact same space again. People will sometimes ask me, well, how did you figure that out? Well, they gave it to me.
Yeah.
It's guidance. Well, how did you figure that part out? I don't know. I do a lot of copying and pasting, because I don't know how I did that before, because it just came.
It just came. And
it just came.
You know, my very first book, which I wrote in 1998, is called 1-800-COURTESY, Connecting with a Winning Telephone Image.
Nice.
And the darn thing was downloaded. I was studying to be a Reiki master. I was having a really hard time because I was in abject fear. I was petrified. I'm like, who am I to be writing a book? I've never done anything like this before. The publisher came out of nowhere. It was one of these, he lived down the street from me. I went down to pick up some books he was donating to a talk that I was giving for a local chamber. And I walked in, and it was all telecommunications. And I said to him, well, the one thing you're missing is telephone etiquette. Do you realize that? I'm looking at all his book covers. And he had about 15 books that he had published at that point. And he looked at me and he said, maybe you should write it. And 3 hours later, I walked out with a book contract. And yeah, exactly. And I remember sitting in the car going, and I was screaming at the top of my lungs. And that wasn't out of excitement. It was out of abject fear. And I was studying to be a Reiki master at the time, and there were 12 other women who were studying with me. Notice the number 12, by the way. There were 12 other women who were studying with me at the same time. And in one of our Reiki master sessions, I brought up my fear and how I was stuck. And they all said to me, why don't you ask for a writing guide? Oh, duh.
Yeah.
Duh. And I left that meeting, and I got into my car, and I said, okay, bring it on. And Audra showed up. And from that day, I would be awakened at like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I would go and I would sit at my computer and it just.
Exactly.
And it kept going. And I remember reading the screen going, ooh, that sounds good. Good job.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's amazing when we are able and willing to get out of the way and allow angels and spirit to just come through, because no one ever told me that there were different kinds of angels. I just started talking to techie angels and copywriting angels. And my mom asked me one day, she said, well, are there angels for puppy dogs or something like that? And I said, well, of course. She said, really? I said, well, why aren't there? You know, so when someone says their puppy dog or their, 100-pound dog, whatever, is having issues, blah, blah, blah. So I send puppy angels or whatever. It just, that's kind of off the subject, but it's not, because there are writing angels, there are techie angels, there are
sales angels.
there's all kinds of angels. Yes. Oh my goodness. So would you share with our viewers, please, beautiful, at least one challenge that you have experienced along the way, besides the screaming one about the book? Another one then. And what it was you did, how you got through it, because so many beautiful souls out there are so freaked out about showing themselves or following what it's like, I've got to do this, but they're frozen in fear.
And I know that feeling so very, very well. It's I call it coming out of the spiritual closet.
Me too.
Okay, coming out of the spiritual closet. And there's a huge movement right now, with energies going from the patriarchal energy and the matriarchal energy, and the goal is actually to bring them both at the middle, because we've been over here at the patriarch side, and now the pendulum is swinging over to the matriarchal side, but extremes of anything doesn't work.
Right.
So it is really about, we need to bring it here. And whether you're a man or whether you're a woman, it's important to tune into that non-dogmatic spiritual side of yourself that has been speaking to you for a long time. And, we get those nudges and those nudges and those nudges and those nudges, and we ignore the nudges. So then when we ignore the nudges, the angels say, okay, well, if you're not going to listen to what we're doing, we're going to have to take matters into our own hands. And bada bing, bada boom, sometimes for us to listen, traumatic things happen that literally stop us in our tracks. So with me, I mean, there are so many stories. I don't even know where to begin. But the one that we talked about the most, I think, was the one we were talking about with my book, where I knew that angels had to go into my book, The Enchanted Boardroom. The tagline is evolve into an unstoppable intuitive leader. But I was petrified to write that chapter. And I mean petrified. And here's me, the angel queen. I've been talking about this stuff forever. I bring them in when I do, but before, I do any kind of coaching session. Yet I was sitting on my daughter's couch in San Diego, and my publisher was out there, and I was also out there for a conference. And it was just time to get this chapter written before my publisher was ready to strangle me. And I started writing, and the fear was just so overwhelming. And I just got on my knees and just bawled my eyes out because I was so scared. And when you think about it, when I look at the fears that were affecting me, it was the fear of not being in control. I had the image of being thrown tomatoes at, tomatoes being thrown at me. And there's something funny to share with you about that. Remind me to come back to that with the tomatoes piece. Okay. The fear of having tomatoes thrown at me, the fear of not being taken seriously, the fear of not being taken credibly, the fear of thinking that I was a kook. Oh, okay, so I'm a kook. Who cares? But the fear of not being liked. And the thing is, when in communications, we talk about the 4 behavior styles: the dominant, the influential, the steady, and the conscientious. The dominants, their emotion is they're quick to anger. and their fear is not being in control. The influentials, their emotion is optimism, and their fear is not being liked. For the steadies, they're the ones who give. They're the customer, the ultimate customer service professionals, and their fear is change. And then the conscientious behavior styles, they're the engineers, the architects, the financial types. They're the pessimists and the skeptics, and their fear is not being perfect. So when you think about all of, those four fears of not being controlled, not being liked, change, and not being perfect, who of us doesn't have those fears? And depending on your behavior style, it's bigger, it's higher or lower, So trust me, they had me by the jugular.
Yeah, they know how to do that.
Yeah. So I was on my knees and I fell to my knees and I said, angels, come on, knock it off. This chapter is about, yes, there are angels in business. Help me out here. And I got out of my way and I wrote the chapter and I shared the story that I shared with you about my kid saying, Mom, pull over. And it was I finally got through it, and we got into it led me into the intuition piece. But to cross over that line of bringing angels into this book, it really was very, very challenging, because that was the beginning of what the Enchanted Boardroom truly is. So this is the bookmark that I use. This is what that's what the cover looks like with my little boardroom here, because angels sit on my Enchanted Boardroom. So should I share about the boardrooms that we talked about?
Absolutely.
Okay. This is actually a business book, believe it or not, called The Enchanted Boardroom. And we have various boardrooms in our lives. In business, we have the physical business boardroom. And these can be made up of mentors, coaches, and stockholders if you're an LLC. Okay. So we have that boardroom. We have another boardroom that is made up of more mentors, more coaches, and family members who think they know what's best for you. Okay. And friends who are constantly giving you feedback, and they, and some of them are really good at saying that you're crazy at following your heart. So we've got that boardroom. And then we have your Enchanted Boardroom. And the Enchanted Boardroom is different for everyone. So this Enchanted Boardroom is made up of your spiritual guides. So you could, Napoleon Hill states in Think and Grow Rich, when two minds come together, the third mind is created. That's the Enchanted Boardroom. Okay, that's the Enchanted Boardroom, that third mind. So who knows who's going to walk into your boardroom? It could be somebody like Napoleon Hill, or Andrew Carnegie, or it could be George Washington. It could be Nelson Mandela. It could be Jesus. It could be, whoever it is that, the Buddha, whoever it is that is part of your, what I call your spiritual network.
I like that, spiritual network.
Spiritual network. Ooh. I like that too. I just came up with that. The spiritual network. And they come in and they sit at your imaginary table, and you can have it wherever it is. I've had clients do it at the beach. I've had them do it in their backyard. I've had them do it in their bedroom. I've had them do it in, their car. They're driving along and they're having a meeting in their car as they're going on a journey of some kind. I mean, it's crazy, the stuff that comes up, but it's unique for each individual, the Enchanted Boardroom. But at the core of it, the angels have helped to create the Enchanted Boardroom. So that's where, that's actually in the last part of the book. The beginning part of the book, we get into what I call the practical, logical, and tactical sides of ourselves as business owners. And we're talking about what really makes a business. And the way I work with business owners is we work from the inside out. We work with your employees first. We work with getting them up to speed and getting them to where they need to go. You're involved with the training. I mean, you're there first, because unless an owner allows me to work with them first, no dice, because nothing will ever change in the culture. Nothing. will ever
I
change.
totally agree. You have if you have the employees and then the owner hasn't changed or allowed him or herself to be transformed from the inside out,
It doesn't work.
doesn't work.
It
Nope.
does not work. And there's a principle that I call it the waterfall effect in the book, in this specific book. In the next book, we're going to change it to the waterfall principle. And the waterfall principle, if you can imagine two waterfalls,
Okay.
drink, okay?
Mhm.
Water can be healing, water
Mhm.
can be destructive.
Yes.
Waterfall number one, the client is at the top of the waterfall, or the customer. The employees are at the bottom of the waterfall. So share with me, Terry, if you're an employee at the bottom of the waterfall and you need to reach the client or the customer that's at the top of the waterfall and serve them, what's happening?
There's a big disconnect because there's too much space.
Yes.
And there's too much space in here that's filled with all the wrong stuff.
And look at the stress trying to get up the waterfall.
Yes.
You know, they're like salmon going upstream, that they're exhausted, they're tired, their resilience just falls apart, their stress just controls them. So that's what happens in that kind of workplace culture.
Okay.
Now, waterfall number two, let's reverse that.
Okay.
The employees are at the top of the waterfall. The
Very nice.
clients are at the bottom of the waterfall. And look at what happens. The energy organically flows to the to the clients.
The clients and customers actually get more of what it is they want.
Exactly. Exactly. So this is part of creating a values-based organization. Southwest Airlines does it beautifully. And that's why they have grown the way that they have. When 9/11 happened, they made a promise to their people that not one person was going to be laid off, and they kept that promise. And what did they do? They ratcheted up training. Everybody else was cutting training. And believe me, I know, because I opened up my center, my leadership center, September 1st of 2001, and 10 days later, bada bing, bada boom,
Right.
9/11 happened, and all the training budgets were cut. Everything was cut. Nobody wanted to do anything except for Southwest. They did the exact opposite of what everybody else was doing. And that's why, and there are employees who I have interviewed who for that reason alone have stuck with Southwest, because of the way Southwest nurtures and cares for their employees.
And I fly that airline whenever possible.
Me too. Me too. They really do take care of their people. Recently, I flew a different airline to go to Hawaii, because Southwest, they are going to fly to Hawaii, but right now they're not.
Now they're not.
No, right now they're not. And I'm so used to, when you're standing there, hi, how are you? Da, da, da. And they greet you as if you're walking into their home on that airplane. They really do. This airline, which will remain unnamed, I felt like I was doing them a favor. That's what it felt like. And yes, the airplane may have been a little bit more modern. And yes, I had the movie monitor right there in the back of the seat. And yes, I watched three great films, and on and on. The energy was, it was literally like you are paying me for the privilege of serving you. And it's like, this just doesn't feel good.
No, and without us, the collective us, there is no business, there is no service, and there's no reason for y'all to be in business, right? Wow, this is what. All right, one question at a time, guys. It's like one question at a time before I fall over my face here. Thank you. What else would you like to share with our viewers? I mean, you have shared so much, and you've actually answered the questions just in the conversation. So thank you, that's the question, got it. What one thing, if you can do one thing, would you share with, encourage our viewers to do for themselves to really get in touch with their own purpose, or to really follow what they came here to do, what they feel compelled to do?
Listen to their heart. That's the bottom line, and listen to the nudges. There's a technique which I will share with all of you. If you go to quickshiftzone.com, you can download this technique. On the back of this, and this is what you'll get, on the back of this bookmark are 4 steps, very quick steps that you can use to connect the brain and the head with the brain and the heart. The heart has been, the Heart Math Institute, as well as many other stress organizations throughout the world, have shown that the heart itself is actually a brain. And the brain sends more messages to the brain and the head than the brain and the head does to the heart. And you can measure the electromagnetic field of the heart 6 to 10 feet away from the body in 360-degree circumference. So when you do this very simple technique that you think isn't working, but indeed it is, when you breathe and shift into your heart and shift into your body, you're actually reducing the cortisol levels, which creates brain fog, which adds weight, which affects all the organs in the body. You're reducing the cortisol levels, and what you're doing is you're increasing the DHEA levels, which are good hormones. And when you get into this beautiful heart space, you're grounded, you're centered. You can see things through different eyes. And this very, very quick tool, I've had folks actually print them out and laminate them, cut them up, okay? And there's one in the bathroom, there's one in their purse, there's one on their computer, there's one in the car. And it's so simple, you think it's not working, but it really, truly is. And in this regard, then, you're working with both brains. A study was done, and I'll share this. This is the last thing I'll share with you to show the power of the heart. It's actually a movie called The Power of the Heart. And it's a movie where there are a lot of folks in there. Folks from the Heart Math Institute are in this movie also. And what they did was they took volunteers and they wired them for sound. They've got nodes all over the place. And they created a presentation where there would be a black screen followed by a positive picture, followed by another picture, followed by a black screen. So in between the black screen, there was either a positive or a negative picture. And the study was done, I believe, a couple years ago, 2 years ago. And the researchers were shocked to see that when they measured the heart rate variability of the volunteers, when they were looking at the black screen, the heart was able to determine 5 to 6 seconds before the next picture was shown as to whether it was positive or negative. So if you think about it from your internal GPS system, okay, the heart, our intuition begins here, goes up to the brain and the head, and disseminates with whichever clair, whether you're clairvoyant, clairaudient, claircognizant, clairsentient, whichever clair you are, to assist you to work with your intuition. And this is all scientifically based, and you can read all about this research at heart, HEART, math, MATH.org. And look under the research tab and type in intuition, and several studies on this will pop up. And a lot of these are peer-reviewed studies.
Wow, this is amazing. What we know, right? What we've been sensing, what we've allowed ourselves to actually acknowledge that we sense and feel, is now being confirmed by science. Hallelujah.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, this is so amazing. I'm hoping that you will come back at some point and we can discuss something else or more of this. This has been phenomenal, and thank you so much. Please, beautiful lady, tell our viewers how they can find you.
Well, I'm on Facebook and Terry Wildemann or Intuitive Leader. My website is www.intuitiveleadership.com. And you can also find me on LinkedIn and on Twitter. Just type in Terry Wildemann.
That's TerryWildemann.
Thank
Okay?
you.
You're
Yes,
welcome.
you got it.
I do. You can also find this beautiful lady at our Living Spirit and Wellness Global Directory. She is one of the founding members, which it just sings to my heart because she really is amazing. Look at what she shared with us, and a way to help you connect with your intuition and not just up here. So thank you so much, beautiful lady. It has been and is a pleasure. I don't know what else to say, but thank you so much for being here.
And thank you for inviting me. This was so much fun.
Oh, good. Bye-bye for now, y'all.